we'd be jamming to the beat. We'd be riding in the car. Michael just be jamming to the beat. He'd be like, boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, you know, it's cool until he starts saying the words. That's when it sounds crazy. He's like, you see me in the club with a bottle full of bub. Michael, no. He would laugh at me all the time because I would talk, and I guess he just laughed the way I talk. I was like, hey, Michael. He was like, so you're so country. You're so country.
Michael Jackson had one of those personalities that people just couldn't resist imitating. The voice, the mannerisms, the dancing, even the way he reacted to things somehow became instantly recognizable. And over the years, everyone from comedians to celebrities and even Michael's own friends tried their version of him. Some were surprisingly accurate, others were completely ridiculous. But the funniest ones are the impressions that somehow managed to capture Michael perfectly, especially when they came from people who had actually spent time around him.
He's like, how you doing, Chris? And when he really missed me, he called me Christmas. Hey, Christmas, how are you? Chris, it felt good. At first, I was like, why you call me? But then it started sounding good. I was like, say that again, Mike. He's like, Christmas? Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon didn't even need a reason to suddenly turn into Michael Jackson. While messing around together, they somehow ended up doing their best Michael impression. Justin jumped into the singing and movements while Jimmy followed along, and pretty soon they were throwing in Michael-style vocals, dramatic gestures, and anything else they could think of. By the end, even Jimmy realized how pointless it had become, joking that they had literally just wasted America's time.
We're turning to Michael Jackson all of a sudden. I don't know why.
He was not on that song at all.
No, that was not.
If you want it, then you got it. First you want it, then you got it. Gotta got to make your mind up. First gotta make your mind up. You want it, you want it, you want it, you want it. You want it, you got it. Put it up, but you know it once you got it, babe. What you gonna do with it once you get it? Gonna wrap it up. Do it, do it, dip, dip, dot, dot, dip, dot, dot, dip, dip, dot, dip, dot, dot, Moscow, dip, 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 dot, 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 SOS. The song never came out. Now I got it. Gonna give it to you for your birthday. It's a Starbucks gift card. It's a Starbucks gift card. Got this from the Starbucks. You make me sweat. You make me work too hard.
will.i.am had a much better reason for doing his impression because he was actually recreating something Michael said. While telling the story of going to see Prince perform with Michael, he slips into Michael's soft voice and recreates his reaction to what Prince was doing. The story is already ridiculous, but hearing will.i.am suddenly become Michael makes it even better.
You brought Michael Jackson and Prince together.
Yeah, so one time we had a show in Vegas, and Michael Jackson called. Hey, what's Michael? Okay, Mike? Yeah, so I heard you guys are doing a show tonight. Yeah, we going at 9 o'clock. Oh, rats, I gotta put the kids to sleep. So I was like, well, I'm performing with Prince later on at 12. So anyways, Michael came to see me rock with Prince. And it was a magnificent night to see. It was me, Chris Tucker, and then watching me, Chris Tucker, Michael Jackson, watching Prince rock on stage. So to make a long story short, Prince steps off the stage and plays the bass in Michael Jackson's face. Just rips the freaking bass in 10 different pieces. Make a longer story shorter, Michael Jackson leaves and goes home and says, meet me in the house for breakfast. So I go to his house for breakfast, knock on the door. First words he says, why was Prince playing the bass in my face? No, Prince, he's just being nice, you know? No, Prince, he's always been a meanie.
Of course, Michael's soft voice has always been the easiest target for comedians, and Eddie Murphy was doing it long before most of them. During his stand-up, Eddie imagines Michael in situations you would never expect and completely changes character. One second, he's loud, energetic Eddie Murphy. The next, he's speaking in this ridiculously soft Michael voice and copying his mannerisms.
That's what women be saying, Michael's just so sensitive. They eat that up. Mike knows too, he be using women in concerts. I see Mike walk up to girls on the stage, be in the audience, he say, is it all right if I come down there and sing to you?
Eddie takes that same voice even further when he starts joking about how sensitive Michael could be. In his version, you had to be careful what you said around Michael, or he might actually start crying. The impression works because Eddie commits completely, going from his normal, loud personality to this incredibly quiet, emotional version of Michael in seconds.
Tito, get me some tissue. Jermaine, stop teasing. You just sing.
Snoop Dogg's version sounds completely different, which is exactly what makes it funny. Michael once called Snoop and asked him to work on a song, so Snoop recreates the conversation in his own Michael Jackson voice. Then he gets to the strangest part. Michael apparently told him that his mother thought Snoop looked like someone in their family and they might actually be related. Hearing that sentence in Snoop's version of Michael somehow makes the story even better.
Did you ever meet and spend any time with Michael Jackson?
Yeah, me and Mike got a song together. I don't know if it ever came out. Some sort of project he was doing, and what was crazy was, right, he called me. So to hear his voice on the phone, he was like, "Hey, it's Michael." I'm like, "What's that, nigga?" He was like, "Well, first of all, my mom says that you look like someone in my family. We could be related." I'm like, "Serious, cuz? So what you need me to do, Mike? I have this particular track and I want you to sing on it and, you know, just do whatever you want to do." I'm like, "All right, cuz, I'm gonna handle that. I'll get back at you, cuz." And that was a conversation with Snoop Dogg and Michael Jackson.
That was it?
But if anyone has turned impersonating Michael into its own comedy routine, it's Chris Tucker. While telling a story about going to the movies with Michael, Chris basically plays both characters. He jumps from his own loud voice straight into Michael's quiet one every time the conversation switches, making a simple trip to the movies sound like a scene from a comedy.
Go to the movies sometime. We go to the movies. Both of us like going to the movies. So we go to the movies, but it's hard because Michael got to sneak in the movie right before it starts. So Michael come in there like with a ninja suit on. He's hiding and all black. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there, well, where's Michael? And then I turn around, he's like, "Hey, Chris." I'm like, "Oh, man." How long you been here? About 5 minutes. I'm sorry. Did I scare you? Sorry, Chris.
The voice is only half of it. Because Chris actually knew Michael, he also copies the little reactions, pauses, and mannerisms he remembers. He doesn't just repeat what Michael said. He tries to show exactly how Michael said it, which is why his impressions feel more like reenactments.
And then, you know, we sneak in, all this stuff. He sneaks in at the last minute. He does all this stuff. Security bring us popcorn and stuff. And, you know, I'm like, he's trying to hide, you know.
Right.
Here you go, Mr. Jackson.
You know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we watching the movie. He's the loudest person in there.
Really?
You know? Yeah, he's watching the movie like, hee hee. I say, "Michael, would you shut up before people see you?" I'm sorry, it was funny, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris likes this particular story so much that he's performed it more than once. When Michael came up on Ellen, Chris went straight back to the movie theater story. The second Michael enters the conversation, that familiar voice returns, and Chris is back in character, like he told the story for the first time.
We would do stuff like go to the movies, and Michael was so famous he had to disguise himself. And we would come downstairs, I'd be like, "Where's Michael?" Michael would be covered up like, "I'm over here, Chris, I'm here." I said, "Michael, that's you?" "Yeah, Chris." I said, "I thought we was going to the movies. You're not even dressed." "I am dressed, Chris." "I just can't go in the movies. We got to disguise it a little bit." I said, "Okay." You know, I'm trying to be secret too. You know, I'm hiding myself. Then Michael laughing louder than anybody. Everybody know Michael's laughing.
Right.
He's like, "Hee hee hee." I was like, "Michael, shut up. They're gonna find you in here. It's gonna be a riot."
His stories with Michael weren't limited to the movies either. Chris once complimented one of Michael's flat-screen TVs, and Michael simply gave it to him. That gave Chris a little too much confidence. He started complimenting everything else, including Michael's Rolls Royce. Michael quickly realized what he was doing, and Chris's impression of his response is perfect. Michael basically started testing just how badly Chris wanted that car before finally shutting the whole plan down. If you like it that much, go buy one yourself.
And Michael was just so nice, man. You'd be around him and you just get happy, man. He would give you anything if you liked something. Like I was just complimenting a flat screen TV he had, and he gave it to me. I was like, "Michael, I didn't want the TV." But then the black came out of me. I started liking everything after that. I said, Michael, I like that Rolls Royce. That's a bad Rolls Royce. Not the old one, the new Rolls Royce, right there. He was like, "You like it, Chris?" I said, "Yeah, I like it." He said, "You sure you like it?" I said, "Yeah, I like it." He said, "Well, you better go buy one, because I ain't giving you my Rolls Royce." "I gave you a TV, damn."
Not everyone doing a Michael voice was trying to make it funny, though. Zac Efron was simply recreating one of the most awkward phone calls of his life. Kenny Ortega suddenly handed him a phone and revealed Michael Jackson was on the other end. Zach nervously introduced himself, told Michael he was an actor, and admitted he was his hero. Michael politely thanked him, then simply asked him to put Kenny back on the phone.
Somehow I was at the head of the table, and Kenny was on the other side of the table, our director, Kenny Ortega. And his phone rang, and I remember I got this look like, you want this phone call? And I was like, okay. So I came over, and I was like, what's going on? He goes, it's Michael Jackson. I'm like, what? And he hands me the phone, and I was like, hello? And I heard, hi, who's this? And I was like, this is Zac Efron. I'm a massive fan, and I'm an actor, and you're like my hero, and I didn't know what to say. I was like I was just at a loss for words and rambling on. And then he said, that's really nice. Can you hand the phone back to Kenny?
Luckily for Zach, that wasn't the end of it. Michael called back and this time recognized him from High School Musical, even telling Zach he was a fan of his work. Zach completely lost it. He slid down the wall crying while explaining how much Michael had inspired him, and Michael became emotional too. Somehow, a painfully awkward first call had turned into something Zach would never forget.
He looked at me again, he's like, you want to get the phone? And I was like, okay. And he hands the phone to me, he goes, it's Michael Jackson again. And I was like, oh, what? Okay. And I picked up the phone, I was like, hello? And he goes, oh, this is Zach from High School Musical? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, I love what you do. I'm a huge fan. I love what you do. And I lost it. I was like, do you know who I am? And I just started crying. I was a mess. Like, literally, I was just making a fool out of myself. I, like, slid down to the floor pathetically and professed how much I loved him. Said, like, you're my hero. You're the reason I do what I do. Like, thank you so much, Michael, for everything. And that made him cry. They were both crying to each other on the phone. And he ended the whole phone call conversation with something along the lines of, hey, Zach. And I like stopped crying for a second. He's like, isn't it awesome? And I was like, what? And he goes, dreams really do come true, don't they? And I was like, I was like, Michael, you can't say things like that.
LL Cool J's Michael voice came from much less emotional conversations. While they were in the studio, LL asked how Michael did the impossible lean-in, smooth criminal. Michael calmly claimed they brought in a swami and performed some special ritual before leaning forward together. LL actually started believing him until Michael finally dropped the act and basically told him, no, silly. The fact that Michael apparently delivered the whole fake explanation with a straight face makes it even better. LL copying that innocent little voice is the perfect ending to the prank.
Like one time we was in the studio and, I said, Mike, in the Smooth Criminal, how'd you lean forward like that? And I was sitting at the, like a baby grand piano. I'm sitting on the, on a chair, and he was like sitting up on the piano like this, you know what I mean? And he was like, oh, well, I said, how did you lean forward? He said, well, we had a swami come in and, we did a special thing and he did a ritual and he leaned forward and we all leaned forward together. I was like, really? He was like, no, silly.
Things only got more ridiculous once LL became comfortable around him. One day, LL casually announced that he needed to fart. Michael was so confused that he kept making him repeat himself before finally telling him to go ahead. LL did exactly that. Then Michael called to order ice cream and apparently decided the person on the phone also needed to hear what LL had just done. And once again, LL switching into Michael's voice while recreating his confused reaction is what turned such a stupid little moment into a hilarious story.
One time I said, I was sitting there, we were in his office. I said, Mike, I gotta pass gas. He said, what? He said, what? I said, Mike, I gotta fart. He said, you gotta what? I said, I have to fart. He said, well, go ahead then. I went, he went, and then, hold on, but this is when it gets funny. I love it, but this is when it gets funny. So he gets on the phone, right? I said, oh man, I would love some ice cream. He says, really? He says, okay, hold on a second. Hello? Yes. Hey, guess what LL did? He ordered some ice cream.
While LL was copying Michael's normal voice, Russell Crowe got to recreate Michael pretending to be someone else. Michael would prank call Russell's hotel room posing as management, using a rough voice and claiming there was some kind of problem. Once Russell became irritated, Michael would suddenly drop the character and reveal himself. So Russell's impression is basically Michael doing an impression inside another Michael Jackson impression, which makes the whole thing even more ridiculous. Russell switching from angry hotel manager back into soft-spoken Michael is what sells the story.
He would always start off being kind of gruff, like he was the hotel management and there was some kind of problem, you know?
I'd say that's less surprising than saying you're Michael Jackson.
And then if I got kind of irritated, he'd go, oh, don't worry, Rex, it's only Michael.
Those prank calls didn't get any more sophisticated either. Russell remembers Michael using classics like, "Is your refrigerator running?" and asking for Mr. or Mrs. Wall before delivering a ridiculous punchline about what was holding up the roof. These weren't elaborate celebrity pranks with some huge setup either. Michael was apparently perfectly happy calling Russell's hotel and using jokes most people probably tried when they were kids. One of the biggest entertainers alive was still using material straight out of a kid's prank call handbook.
We never had any kind of deep and meaningful conversation, man. You know, it was a prank call, I'd be like, this, you know? And he'd be like, oh, don't worry, Russell, it's only Michael. I was like, hello, mate, how you doing, you know? And he'd go, oh, good, what are you doing? We'd have a couple of, you know, you should come and see a show or whatever. And, you know?
Would it be like a classic, your refrigerator's running, you better go catch it?
That kind of thing.
Sir Walter Raleigh in a can? He never got past that one?
Mr. Wall there, is Mrs. Wall's there, Rennie Wall's there. What's holding up the roof?
Steve Harvey had his own version of that famous soft Michael voice. During an interesting story about visiting Michael's house, Steve slips right back into the impression. Michael says something that completely catches him off guard. Steve spends most of these stories controlling every character and every punchline, so watching his version of Michael suddenly turn the situation around on him makes the moment even better. Seeing Steve Harvey of all people have no response might be funnier than the impression itself.
So I walked in this trailer. He said, have a seat. And you know, he always talked like he was whispering. That's the other thing. That was a big difference between me and Mike. I'm Mike, what's up, man? Hey, Steve, how you doing? You know, when he left, and so we're sitting there. He said, grab a seat, grab a seat. And the kids were dressed like Hansel and Gretel. So I thought, you know, they were shooting a video or something. Little boy had on a purple jumpsuit with some lace and them pilgrim shoes with the buckles on it. The little girl had one of them hoop skirts on. So Mike come up, I said, Mike, who the little white kids keep running through your trailer? He said, white kids, where? He came out the back, I said, Daddy, go right there. He said, those are my kids.
Eddie Murphy also had a story from Michael's house, except his involved one of Michael's more unusual residents. Apparently, the animal wasn't nearly as happy to see Eddie as Michael was. As Eddie recreates the encounter, that familiar Michael voice returns, turning what should have been a simple visit into Eddie trying to avoid an animal that wanted nothing to do with him. And after hearing Eddie exaggerate Michael on stage, it's even funnier hearing him use almost the same impression while describing something that actually happened between them.
Michael Jackson would be there. He watched Cocoon there?
He was behind the door at first because there was too many people. There's too many people in the room. He was hiding behind the door. I said, Eddie, come. And I went behind the door, and then we would stand behind the door, and I was like, what the hell? There's so many people in there. Michael had like a real zoo at his house, and with a big zoo with giraffes, and I mean, he had a facility, a thing that was so big that giraffes was walking around and like, it was huge, and Bubbles had gotten too old. And Bubbles was in a cage, like tripping, like, ah! And Michael was like, "Don't go near the cage."
Then there are the impressions where nobody is really laughing because they're too busy wondering how someone got it that accurate. Giuliano Valdi, who plays young Michael Jackson in the 2026 biopic Michael, doesn't just throw in a moonwalk and a few famous poses. He copies the smaller movements and timing too. The interesting part is seeing how much of Michael's style comes from tiny movements most casual impressions completely ignore. After all those exaggerated versions of Michael, seeing someone study him this closely feels completely different.
Do you still have the moves like that you did in the show, Giuliano? You still got some of those?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah! Come on, man. Here we go, here we go.
But Chris Tucker wasn't finished, and one of his funniest impressions came from Michael's taste in rap music. Apparently, he liked Rick Ross too, and Chris would catch him quietly making those deep sounds from the songs. Michael kept denying it until Chris finally caught him and got him to admit he really did love Rick Ross. Hearing Chris combine Michael's soft-speaking voice with an attempt at those deep Rick Ross sounds might be one of the strangest versions of Michael in the entire video.
Don't sing the words, Chris. I love that song, Chris. I love that beat. I love it, Chris. That is a cold-blooded beat. I love that beat. Of course I wouldn't go in a club with a bottle full of bud, Chris. I wouldn't do that. But I love that song, Chris. That didn't sound right, Mike. I know, but I love it. He liked Rick Ross, too. He loved, sometimes he'd be going around the place. He'd be doing a song like, I'm like, what the hell was that? I said, Michael, was that you? No. Did you hear that? I didn't hear nothing. I didn't know what that was. I thought you did it. I don't know who did it. One time I called him, he said, I said, Mike, I saw you. I knew it was you. I'm sorry, because I love Rick Ross. I love him.
Chris may have saved his funniest Michael voice for the time he interrupted Michael and Barry Gibb singing How Deep Is Your Love. Hearing Michael sing live blew him away, but Chris couldn't resist joining in. Michael immediately tried to shut him down, and Chris recreates every second of it. Michael telling him to stop, apologizing to Barry, and finally giving Chris some painfully simple advice. What makes Chris's version even funnier is how polite his Michael stays while basically telling him that his singing is ruining the moment. Maybe just stick with the jokes.
So they start singing. Michael started singing first. Man, I never heard him sing live before. He was like, how deep is your love? How deep? And then I got caught up and came in. Come to you on a summer breeze, and you know I deserve, and you know it. And Michael was like, Chris, no, Chris. What are you doing, Chris? Barry, I'm sorry, Barry. Chris. I said, Michael, I'm sorry, I got caught up. No, Chris, no. Stick with the jokes, Chris. No, what are you doing?
If you made it this far, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.